Guys, this is Bradley alongside Zach, and you are listening to the Charm City Sideline Podcast. Be sure to like the video and subscribe if you're new. Ravens content, 12 months of the year. So we had the draft this weekend, Zach. Um, and we went live for day one during the draft, and then we went live after day two. We've done nothing on day three. So it's Sunday now. Obviously, the draft ended yesterday. And we kind of just wanted to do a bit of a casual live, sort of talking about all 11 of the Ravens draft picks going back
Yeah.
to Thursday.
Yeah, and as much fun as we had talking about, our first 3 guys selected, the other 8 were just as fun to hear about. There's a few trades, not necessarily amazing like get back in any way or any trade ups, but EDC working his magic like we know him, and I think just looking at it from a total group, you can't say you're not happy with this draft class in total. I think a bunch of websites gave us pretty high grades. PFF, ESPN, Bleacher Report have all got us in B+ minimum range, and I think we're considered among maybe the top 10 in draft classes just from the looks of it, given the value especially too.
Yeah. I would say I liked most of the picks. And I guess we're going to get into sort of I wouldn't call it initial thoughts because we've had sort of some time to think about everything. We're going to go back to Thursday, like I said, to get, we didn't get to talk about Malachi Starks that much. So we'll just get into that right now. As I get my tabs open here of my notes, because I forgot to do that before we went live. But Malachi Starks, so the Ravens took him at 27. Going back to it, Zach, the Falcons traded up to 26, and we were all like, okay, Malachi Starks is not going to be a Raven. The Falcons are going to take him. They jump the Ravens. No, they take James Pierce. And that was really cool to see. So we talked about Malachi Starks a lot pre-draft, but we didn't, like I said, we talked about him for maybe 5 minutes the night of the draft, and then we're distracted by the Bills picks and the Eagles and the Chiefs picks. So something I learned about recently that I didn't know is he was homeless 2 separate times during his childhood. And he talked about, the work ethic of his parents and how big they were in his life, working night shifts, day shifts, and how he sort of got that from them. And you can really see that in his play and in his interviews. Super high character guy, like definitely plays like a Raven, is such a Raven as a person.
Yeah.
And, we've talked about this before, but he came out as a true junior. Great track athlete in high school, 10.55 in the 100-meter, and then 3-year starter at Georgia. Started 40 games there in the SEC.
And I love what you were kind of talking about it whenever we previewed him, and I think maybe even talked about it in mocks, that he's not the most athletic guy, in the class.
Yeah,
I think his athletic score was pretty low end, but like everything about him is still the perfect Raven DB that we need. Our Darius is a freak. Kyle Hamilton's a freak. Like if you add in a guy that's not necessarily the most twitchy, crazy, fast guy on the field, but his IQ is out the roof and he can make a play on the ball, why not completely entertain that? And that's what the Ravens did. So you also get the best safety, at least in our opinion, at 27, which was technically a need. I think there was, now that we're kind of over the draft and we see the entire class for the Ravens, I think fans were pretty well banging the drum for trenches. That's addressed in day 2, but it's not as amazing, I think, of a turnout in general that maybe I had hoped for, as in maybe a Michael Pierce replacement. I think to skip a few names down here, Peebles from Virginia Tech, our 6th-round pick, 210, pick 210.
Mm-hmm.
Fub, his nickname.
Yeah.
Amazing that he's already become a fan favorite just on the name. I mean, that is just top tier, but he's not a Michael Pierce replacement. And that's okay. He fits more of the archetype of a Travis Jones, of a Nnamdi Madubuike, closer than you would, the nose tackle replacement. And since we don't take an interior D-line pick until that late, there's no problem with that, especially it being another guy closer to what our defensive line is now. I think EDC talked about it in the press conference that a nose tackle is definitely going to be considered still, and that they'll probably go and sign one. So outside of maybe that area of trenches, we ask for an edge that's addressed. You ask for
Yeah.
tackles and guards that's heavily addressed.
Yeah.
I love, and it's all guys with high upside. Really, it's a
Mm.
guy that seems like he's really he has a blah 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 this kind of trait that's keeping him right there. But
Yeah.
proves it. It's all very one-sided, very great at stuff. So like Vincent, I know you have a lot to talk about for him, but
Hmm.
he was amazing run block wise, was not the best pass block wise. Seemed like he got moved off his feet, but that's okay. It's a developmental tackle guy that you get in the 5th round. That was a part of a trade back with the Titans. And um, I'm rambling now, but like Jones and Vincent, those are all guys that we're sitting here happy with, because if you keep addressing the trenches, even if it wasn't the best way in all of our opinion, as in fans, it's totally okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I like what they did with that. Definitely would have, overall thoughts wise, probably would have maybe rather had an interior D lineman early. But we'll get into people's later, and I like the traits that he brings. But back to Starks at 27.
Mhm.
He is a very high floor guy, I would say. Um,
Yeah.
Strong tackler. He could definitely use some work in the run game, I would say. And when he was at Georgia, he played a lot more split safety, free safety in 2023, and then moved not to the nickel, but played a lot of nickel in 2024. And I think that's where he didn't have as much success. A lot of times we saw, sort of last offseason, last summer, Malachi Starks was thought of as a top 10 pick in this draft, and just
Mhm.
like didn't play up to exactly the same level in 2024. But the ball skills are off the charts. And just like the versatility, I think he can play man. Sometimes, he can be baited by the quarterback in certain situations. Um, but what do you sort of see as how the Ravens use Starks, Washington, and Hamilton and the rest of the secondary together?
Yeah, that's the fun part to talk about all this. That was when you talk about, like I was saying, with needs, right?
Mhm.
Safety for me wouldn't have been that high. But you
Yeah.
get a legitimate guy in a first round caliber safety. Now, what we've been talking about this whole offseason is addressed, as in Hamilton can play anywhere on the field, and we have a capable guy in the back end. So it's an upgrade from, Eddie Jackson last year,
For
or
sure.
or different names that we could be mentioning. That is the biggest upgrade, as in a secondary piece you could ask for. Um, and it also kind of negated the fact that we take a corner somewhat earlier too. It was almost a double-sided sword. So you get a guy that can be. I loved his IQ as well. I think the IQ
Mhm.
as in a backfield guy is perfect, and that's what kind of stands out to a Starks
Did
compared
you
to an Ardarius.
Yeah, did you see the video the Ravens posted, I think today, of
Yes,
Garrett Downing was showing him a couple clips and Starks was breaking them down?
so cool. That's
I mean,
awesome to
awesome.
do.
Yeah. That was an awesome thing to do idea-wise for the Ravens, and also you
Hmm.
can just see the IQ in Malachi Starks, basically, like, breaking down everything, that went through those couple of plays, talking about, the alignment of the receivers and how they switched on route concepts and, using an armbar tactic down the field and finding the ball, and all
Mm,
that stuff was really cool. I see him I would kinda like them to use him as a free safety. Um
hmm,
More so than like a nickel type of player, but you want to be able to move Ardarius, Hamilton, and Starks all around,
yeah,
You don't want it you want to like confuse the quarterback, right? And so
yeah.
I do think they want to move him around a little bit and disguise looks, but I do really, really like him as a split field safety deep, or that center guy in cover three. Um is sort of how I see Starks being used, and I think he's probably gonna be playing a lot right away
Sure.
as well.
Hmm.
Um, and I've talked about this before. Like Hamilton kind of got benched a little bit his rookie year early on,
Hmm.
and the Ravens do have the capability to do that with Starks if he struggles a little bit because of Washington and Hamilton. So there's not a ton of pressure on him right away, I would say.
I like that. Yeah, I like noting that. You almost forget about Hamilton's beginnings there too.
Yeah, he struggled in September, his first
Mhm.
year. So I think Starks is a very high floor guy. Like I am, he's like a surefire going to be a really good player for me.
Mhm.
Um,
And
Okay.
I just to basically wrap it up, I love what you started with as in a character. Like, there's nothing overly cocky or anything about
yeah,
him. Humble beginnings, and you fully see that in his work and play. He's such an amazing fit for the Ravens.
yeah. So I agree there. And now we can get into more of Mike Green, who obviously was a surprising, bit of a controversial pick there
Yeah.
at 59 for obvious and good reasons. Um, so obviously this was a guy who Zach, I watched our Edge video back
Yeah.
and you started talking about Mike Green. And this was when the allegations, we knew about allegations, but they weren't as well known.
Yeah.
And you talked about Mike Green, and I kind of cut you off, and I was like, Zach, he's not going to be there at 27.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Dude, I was remembering something different from all of that, which I bite my tongue about, but
And
wow.
I laughed out loud when I heard myself say that because I'm like, and then I started saying, like, yeah, his clock price starts around 13, 14, Falcons area. And you were like nodding your head and stuff. And we still ended up talking about him for 5 minutes. But yeah, I was like, he's not going to be there at 27. And then Ravens get him at 59.
Just ridiculous, man.
Which is crazy. But like, I mean, we already talked about the allegations in our video Friday night. Basically, just had a sexual assault allegation in high school, had another one in UVA, transferred to Marshall. Everyone's talked about how much they've loved him at Marshall. No one has anything to complain about him. And you mentioned this, Zach, a good take from you, like 27, maybe a bit of a risk there. 59, like
How can you not?
the investment of having a bust in the second round versus the first round is like
Yeah, there you go.
not as bad. But we'll see. I think Ravens trust him. Think he's a good guy. So
And to go off that, Brad,
yeah,
I to also assure, any fan that's also thinking about that past, when you compare it really to what we have with Tucker at the moment, and we as a fan base, as media at all, don't know almost anything about it besides, just the allegations. So we can't really say, I mean, sure, we drafted a kicker. That's not a great look for him, but you can't say confidently if he's going to be on the team or not. Mike Green, this is all stuff in the past. DaCosta and Harbaugh say that they did extensive research. All of the scouts go to Marshall, go to Virginia, ask all of them, and got information to make sure that this guy would be a capable player with taking the risk on with a second round pick, even a second round pick. So I just feel safe, whenever they talk about him in that kind of regard, because I'm so high on him, right? I think that where I really, what I'm talking about earlier, I bit my tongue about, my notes were, I don't love the Senior Bowl standout kind of tag that he has. I don't love the lack of talent he played against all year. That's what I started with whenever we talked about in the preview about Mike Green. I had him, I think, like a 5 or 6 range. And on the other hand, I mean, everything that I've watched since then has completely made me fall in love with him. His draft pick call, he's just sobbing with his family. I mean, to think about that past and where he's ended up now in a genuinely great situation for him in the Ravens, needing an edge, needing the explosive guy, all of his tape, all of his highlights, it's as good as anyone's. His ratings before the draft, as in where he was projected, in getting him at 59, it's an all-around home run. It just feels like it feels so much more of a safe pick once you do your research, once you look into it more and know that the whole front office believes that this guy has all that stuff behind him and his best days are ahead. It's very comforting.
Yeah, I would agree. Just sort of, thinking it as new beginnings. Like every time something like this happens, it's such a difficult situation as a front office, as a fan, as the guy going through it. Like we will never know with like these types of situations.
Yeah,
And you just hope like worst case scenario, like gets to Baltimore. Like everyone at Marshall's only has good things to say about him.
yeah,
So you just hope like at the very least, like that stuff is behind him and he's going to Baltimore, starting a new chapter,
yeah.
and could be a great player for Baltimore. And I feel like that's how the Ravens front office feels about him. I feel like we should, now like get into more so of the player and like what
Sure.
he brings to Baltimore. Um, so he was at Marshall in 23 and 24.
Hmm.
He's a true senior, so 2 years at UVA, 2 years at Marshall. Um, I think he had like 4.5 sacks or 5 sacks maybe his first year at Marshall, something like that. And then just the senior year completely broke out. Um, he's 6'3", 251 with 32-inch arms. So like the knocks on him in terms of on the field are competition at Marshall.
Yeah.
And then I'd say the other one is size, a little bit small. Arm length is not the same as some of these other guys. Micah Williams, looks like a pterodactyl out there.
Pterodactyl.
Mike Green does not have that type of length to him. Um, I would say I was and speaking just on the field, I was still a little bit lower on Mike Green than consensus. Like I think I have it as my number 6 edge.
Yeah.
I liked Ezraku more. I liked Michael Williams more, but still, like I think of him as a top 25 prospect in my book.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, like getting into him as a player, super high energy pass rusher, super explosive. We talked about this. Abdul Carter Light. I heard us say that in our edge
Yes, that
preview.
is right.
We
Yes.
talked about him as like he's kind of a poor man's Abdul Carter, but like I promise that's a compliment because Abdul Carter
Yeah.
is one of the best pass rushers we've
An
seen in a
animal.
while.
Yeah. Mm.
Um, the Senior Bowl rep versus Josh Connerly, who the Commanders selected in the first
Yeah.
round. It's obviously just one rep. For example, Carson Vincent, the tackle the Ravens drafted in the 5th round or whatever,
Mhm. Yeah.
beautiful rep against Shamar Stewart at the
Yep.
Senior Bowl, who the Bengals drafted in the 1st round. So it is hard to like just one rep. It's hard to,
Yeah.
put everything into that. But he left the Senior Bowl early because he was doing so well and sort of wanted to, mic drop moment, as Chris Sims called it. But yeah, instincts against the run, just like so explosive, and I think it finishes well, tackling the quarterback.
Yes. Yes.
High effort, high motor guy,
Yeah.
and it's crazy. Like, are the Ravens going to have that elite edge rusher that they haven't had in so long? We'll see.
I sure hope so, man. And Green fits the you said it, like the frame, the size of being that kind of guy, the explosiveness of being that caliber of a guy.
Yeah,
I think I don't want to add anything to what you just said because it was perfect, but I think the one note that I had at the very end of talking about Mike Green was that no one gets out of his hands. You basically said it with finishing tackles, getting the quarterback. He it's almost like the finger on them, the hand touching them is all that he needs to just rip them down, whether that was in run support or in getting to the QB. So overall, it probably was, if I'm being honest, it probably was my favorite pick. We were super high on Green. Being a top 25 guy as in boards is one thing, but I wanted to mention that I think I might have said it last time, but Kuiper was really hammering this idea that all of the edges were a little bit overrated. It's a big need in the NFL for an elite one, so you'd value them higher than others, and the draft kind of proved that to be a little right. So a bunch of them fell. Ezraku fell, Scorton fell. It turned out to be a very valid argument, and it ended up being in the Ravens' favor to get him at possibly. That's why I love it. The value of the pick, how high we think of him, and the fact that any of this background stuff that he has is in the rearview mirror. And I'm all in on Mike Green, I think.
Yeah. Ravens have, been trying to find this elite edge rusher for a long time, and
Mhm.
we'll see what he can do in his rookie year. Pretty good, Starks and Mike Green, first 2 picks is pretty cool. I saw Zach Orlick posting these guys on his Instagram story after
Oh,
they
really?
drafted, and
Nice.
he
I didn't see
seems
that.
he seems really hype about these 2 guys, but um yeah, man. Pretty
If that was the only 2 picks we get, dude, that's pretty A+ territory for me.
Yeah, yeah.
That was it.
Zay's in the chat.
What's up, Zay? Zay says, "I love the draft besides the kicker." Maybe that's just,
Interesting,
the
Zay.
thought of
I love
Tucker
the
being
kicker
gone,
pick.
but, I mean, yeah, I appreciate a kicker pick just to get
Yeah.
Tucker a little fired up, but, I see what you mean. You wanna go into our 3rd round guy?
Yeah.
We touched on
So
him a little bit.
yeah, we talked about him. I don't think we'll have much else to add than what we did on Saturday, but
Right.
pick 91, they go with Emory Jones, the tackle out of LSU. We both think of him as a guard.
Mhm.
Came out as a true junior, so just 3 years in the SEC.
Yeah.
6'5", 315, 34 and a quarter inch arms. Ravens picked him right around where he's ranked on consensus boards. Started all 3 years at right tackle at LSU, 36 starts. I mentioned this already, but I felt like he just didn't have the athleticism to play outside in the NFL. Feels like very sturdy and strong to me. I think could be a really good run blocker as a guard. And we'll probably move into there. And I think we'll be competing with Falele this offseason
I think
to
so.
maybe start there. I'll probably be rooting for him, but yeah, we'll see. And I do think maybe swing tackle capabilities
Mhm.
as maybe a starting guard. You talked about maybe like a McCary replacement almost.
Yeah. It feels like that. 36 games for right tackle, and then all of a sudden NFL's like, well, he could be a great guard. So
Mhm.
it's funny to see a player completely turn like that. And I love talking about it. You were a little against the footwork. I called it
Yeah.
positioning. I love the IQ as in that kind of a player. As an O lineman getting positioning rather than I call it footwork. Maybe footwork wasn't as big of a note to me, but I knew that anytime in the pass rush, he seemed legitimate at stopping it. One of our
Mhm.
2 LSU offensive linemen chosen?
Yeah.
That's kind of funny, but
Kind of crazy.
yeah, man. I think absolutely think he can be a competitor in that guard
Yeah.
room for sure.
Yeah. So again, probably not as much to add on Emory Jones.
Mhm.
We did talk about him a lot on Saturday if anyone wants to go back and watch that video. But oh yeah, and one other thing, no serious injury history. Played 12 plus games every year, so that's another
Yeah,
good sign as well. Okay, are you ready to get into the day 3 guys that
I so
we
am.
have not talked about?
Mhm.
I'll let you start with your initial thoughts. So actually, I'll break it down a little bit, then I'll go to you.
For
So pick
sure.
129, Teddy Buchanan out of California, the off-ball middle linebacker. We picked him a few times in mock drafts, and I just remember being like, "That's an interesting way to
Oh,
spell
cool name.
Teddy,"
Yeah.
and that's about it. 4th-year senior, 6'2", 233, ran a 4.6 flat. It's very funny because people are talking about how athletic he is, and I'm like, yeah,
Mm.
4.6, that's pretty good. I was like, what did Trenton Simpson run?
Uh-oh.
4.43.
Yeah, dude, yeah.
Like,
I get
jeez, man.
golly.
And I'm just thinking that just made me think like, man, if Simpson can put it together, he's an absolute freak.
Mhm.
But anyway, Buchanan was 3 years at UC Davis and then transferred to Cal. 114 tackles in 2024,
Ooh.
5 sacks, 4 pass breakups. Zach.
Yeah, and I love that we were honestly kind of rooting for Teddy as in just his name in mock drafts. That's so much
Yeah.
fun. And the whole thing is gonna be comparing him to Simpson. If you want to have him compete as in your guy across or next to Roquan's going to be in a league of his own, obviously.
Mhm.
Simpson and Buchanan kind of similarly match up as in where they are as in a linebacker, but different traits almost completely.
Yeah.
Like Teddy he's heat seeking like Simpson is. Simpson, whenever you see any of his college stuff or a little bit of sparks in NFL games, he would fly to the backfield to get to somebody. And I think that Teddy has that ability. It just wasn't as, I guess, perfectly said, quick. It wasn't as fast. And I think
Mhm.
that's okay. He has athleticism in different ways, maybe a lateral kind of thing. And I love that his IQ was there. I always love the IQ picks. Like it seems like
Yeah.
between the ears, he's a genuinely smart linebacker. And that's why I think if he were to have a perfect preseason, a perfect camp, he's going to be in a discussion to be alongside Roquan because
Yeah.
Simpson hasn't proven to be the perfect starting guy next to him. So I'm all in on a linebacker pick, especially this early. I think it was a little surprising, honestly. I thought
Yeah,
they
I
would
was
go.
surprised.
This was around the range for a different, maybe a guard, maybe a um, D lineman, maybe a corner. So that
Mhm.
we definitely got our corners in the back half, but
Yeah.
uh, the linebacker pick this early was a little surprising to me.
Yeah, me too. I was really expecting interior D line here,
Yeah.
or a corner. But yeah, Cal, they used him as a spy a lot. Play against Auburn, he was spying, and then sort of has the awareness to go and get the quarterback right before he even takes off, gets a sack there. Um, Pretty sure tackler, I would say.
Yeah, for sure.
Kind of like I feel like he's kind of like a finesse tackler. Like I wouldn't call him like a thumper, but he makes the tackle
I
kind
love
of.
that. Yeah,
Um,
that's well said.
Good in coverage, really good in coverage.
Mhm.
Can be that deep middle guy in Tampa too,
Yeah.
for sure, covering the seam. Um, I think can play like man on tight ends down the seam. Maybe can't like cover a whip route by Saquon Barkley, but for the most part, who can?
Who could? Yeah, what? Who what?
But overall, like I think can kind of stick with guys, tight ends, and man coverage. Um, does like I said, make tackles in the run game. Sort of the downsides with him are like I do think it's all coachable things. Maybe I think he could, like I said, could be more physical with his tackles. At times, I would say another thing is like, let's say a guard is trying to get to the second level on Buchanan. It almost feels like he kind of like lets the guard get to him instead
Hmm.
of like making a violent like push towards the guard or trying to get around him. I feel
Hmm.
like he kind of just feels like he's taking on the block. So I'd say like getting to blocks quicker and being more violent could be huge for Buchanan. But sometimes he does get around that block, sort of dips around and makes a tackle, which is good to see as well. Just like that athleticism, like we talked about. Definitely will play a lot of special teams as a rookie, and like you said, maybe will be the guy next to Roquan Smith. Um,
I'd love to see him in the conversation for sure.
yeah, I think it might sort of be kind of a battle between him and Simpson. I think Simpson will be given the edge early in
Hmm.
terms of like the coaching staff. But if he drastically outperforms Simpson in camp, then we could see something different. And maybe this is a thing like September, October, they're both playing a lot. And
Sure.
I think even if Simpson is good this year and sort of figures it out, I think we could see Buchanan on like passing downs, playing in coverage, maybe blitzing. But yeah, this is a pick where I feel, and it's funny because we didn't even really know anything about him, but I
Yeah.
feel a lot better after watching some tape and looking into him than I did my initial thoughts right when they took him.
Yeah. And any like it's hard to explain. Whenever you hear a guy on like local broadcasts talk about, their college team and all during a game, they
Mhm.
sounded so confident in like a play he makes. They
Yeah.
knew he was going to be there. They knew he was a part of being the athlete in that way. And I mean, we always want to talk about how athletic they are as a linebacker because linebackers are always going to be that way. But
Yeah.
it's funny to compare Teddy to a Simpson as athletes because you see it in such different ways. It's such an amazing uh, thing to notice whenever you just think about linebackers and this Ravens room too. It's fun to imagine,
Mhm.
maybe even closer to as in the IQ in between the ears of a Chris Board kind of replacement more than getting another Simpson to try that kind of player
Yeah.
out as in traits. So,
Yeah, for sure.
but I love what you said. After doing, our research, it seems like that's a pretty fun pick that early.
Yeah. And in terms of sort of their middle linebacker, off ball linebacker depth that you're looking at right now, obviously there's Simpson and Roquan, and there's Teddy Buchanan. They signed a Jake Hummel, who I think they sort of
Oh yeah, yeah,
signed as like that Chris Board replacement special
yeah.
teams guy, can do what he's supposed to do if he needs to play
Mhm.
inside linebacker. And then they signed your guy, Zach, Jay Higgins out of
Oh
Iowa
yeah, I
as a
did see that.
UDFA.
Yeah, that's fun, man. That's awesome. And
um,
that
Go ahead.
no, it's okay. I was gonna say something about Higgins, but we don't need to go into
No,
all
talk
of the
about
graphic
Higgins.
guys. Well, Higgins was
You
whenever I
liked him.
talked about in the linebackers, I know I loved him because everything on the field was like, "Shut up, stop talking about me like I'm a bum of an athlete." Because
Yeah.
I just mentioned it. All these linebackers are like, "Yeah, this guy is a freak athlete," or "Yeah, this guy is
Mhm.
so fast," or "This guy is so strong, loves hitting guys." Higgins would do all that, but the I forgot what I called it. Maybe the tangibles of him as a person made him look like he does not belong as a linebacker in the NFL. And
Was it
PFF
his
was one.
size?
Yeah, yeah. Everything was low percentiles for him,
Oh yeah,
and
he's the guy that's 220.
yeah, and so hey, big Jay Higgins fan. That's awesome that they did get it. I saw that. Love that we mentioned that.
Yeah, Zay likes Higgins a lot too. So yeah, we just sort of covered the Ravens inside linebacker room. But
Mhm.
so yeah, moving on from Buchanan, who we both like. We both like there. 141.
Yeah, this was a trade back. We had another pick in the fourth, and it was a trade back into the fifth with the Titans to get the Alabama A&M tackle Carson Vincent.
Yeah, so Carson Vincent, fifth-year senior, all 5 years at Alabama A&M, the
That's pretty
Bulldogs
awesome.
over there.
Mm-hmm.
6'7", 314. A little bigger than Ronnie Stanley, but pretty similar in size.
Mm-hmm.
I always try to compare these guys to, current Ravens players to get a feel for it. 34.5-inch arms, so he's got pretty good length. I think really good size for NFL tackle. Could maybe put on a little bit of weight. He's like an inch taller than Ronnie Stanley and like 5 pounds less. So can maybe put on a little bit more weight, but overall pretty good. Athletic, man, 5'1" in the 40. I think Orlando Brown fell in the draft because he hit like 6 seconds in the 40 or something like that. So if you like comparing him to a guy like that, like pretty athletic tackle. We talked about the Senior Bowl rep against Shamar Stewart. It's just hilarious. Like the Bengals first round pick. It's just really funny that he absolutely Shamar Stewart tried an inside spin move and Vincent completely bottled him up.
Bullied him. And there was another guy, LSU guy. I don't remember the name. Also just abused him. I mean, there was so many reps that were caught that he was impressive for a fifth round guy. I just looking at like a few of videos on him, really good as a run blocker. I think that the pass blocking was a little bit of the struggle, which is kind of funny. All of the guards and tackles we've seen so far were more successful in passing. And I think that it's another name of a bunch of, I guess, the Ravens picks in general this year, as in a really good bowl, a Senior Bowl, Shrine Bowl performer. Like the scouts were really everywhere for the Ravens and really high on some of these performers, which I thought was really interesting. I thought that was pretty cool. Ravens had a top 30 visit with him. That was also
I didn't even know
something
that. Wow.
And that being what the Ravens want to make sure they get the full, day, whatever with them. Whenever they talked about, talking to Mike Green and having him there in Baltimore for a day, that makes you feel good. Knowing that Vincent was there for maybe a day, that's also a fun thing. Knowing the front office fully knows him and was really committed to getting him. He was one of the better prospects, apparently, as in a, back end college player. And again, I'm happy with this pick. Like so far, I'm all thumbs up in general.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to say what's up to Rod Wave and Attitude Pop.
Yeah, what's up, guys?
Yeah, 44 starts at left tackle for Alabama A&M.
Yes.
First team all SWAC, Southwestern Athletic Conference. In 2024, over 800 snaps,
Wow.
10 pressures allowed and 2 sacks.
Wow.
Um, definitely needs to develop, obviously. Like,
Yeah.
um, but I think he has great length and I think he's athletic enough. Can sometimes, like I would say, struggle to find an anchor when he plays against bigger and badder guys. But an example, Shamar Stewart, perfect rep from him.
Yeah.
There. Lance Zierlein, NFL scout, said he flashes the tools to potentially compete in a move-based blocking scheme, but must
Mm.
prove he can still stall out pass rushers with greater consistency before he can be considered NFL ready. And that was something I agreed with. Was there something you wanted to say?
Yeah, what you basically said, I forgot to mention it. As in when I talked about not the best as in a pass blocker, he just got moved off his feet a lot. Maybe that's just a strength
Yeah.
thing. NFL strength comes into play and he becomes a good guy. But I love what Cole Jackson tweeted out about him. He is the perfect developmental tackle pick. He is perfect. It
I
seems like
agree.
the most amazing fifth round kind of back end of the draft. You get a tackle and he excels in every fashion as in a bowl guy and as all of his college career. So
Yeah.
why not take the chance on him? I love that pick.
I
Seriously.
know. I know. Yeah. He quick feet. And I saw an interview at the Senior Bowl where he was talking about how he holds himself to a super high standard, and he openly talked about how he knew he needed to prove himself at the Senior Bowl because of the competition that he played at
Mm,
Alabama A&M for 5 years,
for
and he
sure.
did just that. But he mentioned how the FCS has a lot of great players, and we see that with the draft every year. He also said he's addicted to football and he thinks about it 24/7. So
Love
from a
hearing that
tackle that you're
every
hoping
time.
develops and can be coachable and get better at his technique and refinement and all that,
Mhm.
saying he's addicted to football and thinks about it 24/7, that's
Yeah,
exactly what you're looking for.
for sure.
In terms of impact moving forward, definitely backup tackle, backup left tackle. I would say this is the guy that, and they might take a flyer on these every draft, every couple
Mhm,
of years, to try to get a replacement for Ronnie Stanley once he's done. And I
mhm.
think this is one of those flyers. Like maybe this guy can be
I like that.
our future left tackle if they can try to develop him because all the talent is there, in my opinion. Um, Similar to like a Jordan Love on the Packers sitting for a few years. I feel like this is kind of what the
Sure.
Ravens are trying to do with Carson Vincent at tackle.
I love that.
Um, but yeah, anything else on him, Zach?
I don't think so.
Um,
I wanna
Comment.
well,
I just
yeah, I
want to
was
get this comment from Rod
yeah,
Wave.
I was about to yeah, we were talking about the same one.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. Yeah, we'll talk about Wester. I think just a few more guys here, and then we'll get to Wester. Yeah, I absolutely love that pick. Ravens
Yeah.
finally having a punt returner is going to be awesome.
Mhm.
Okay, you want to get to Bilal Kone?
Yeah, this was a Ravens selection. This was their actual pick, round 6, pick 178. Kone, Western Michigan corner. Um, it's funny how much I compared really him and Longerbeam, our later 6th-round pick, to each other, but Kone and Longerbeam are like pretty opposite. Like Kone is
Yeah,
not the speediest guy, doesn't have the greatest technique. He's a lengthy guy, helps in the run game, made big plays in college, and compare him to a longer beam. I won't get into longer beam as much, but it's a different corner. I love that they're getting a broad spectrum of a DB room in total. Combine them with the fact that we had Stark, so you didn't need to take a corner too early. I love that. I'm glad that they did that. I think a good amount of fans were wanting the corner still, but I think I totally agree taking one later. And this was the range that they were hitting that market for sure. Are you muted?
thanks. Yeah, Kone out of Western Michigan. Good friends with Malachi Starks, actually, which is really cool.
Oh, I didn't see that. Really?
They trained together a lot in the pre-draft process.
What?
So
That's cool.
they both were really excited when they ended up here.
That's cool.
Kone has a cool story as well. Born in the States, United States of America, moved to Ivory Coast at some point. I'm not sure when, but he moved over to Ivory Coast, came
Where
back
is
to
that?
America, um, and had to learn English when he moved back. And his younger brother passed away his freshman year of college, and he mentioned how he found a new purpose and perspective in life when that happened. And the story continues to go on. He
That's really cool.
2 years at community college, JUCO, and then transferred to Indiana State, played there for 1 year, and then 2 years at Western Michigan, fifth-year senior, 6'1", 190, the perfect size that the Ravens like at corner, and a fast guy too, 4.43. The one thing that Longerbeam and Kone do have in common, they're both really fast.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love this. This was a guy I talked about a lot in our pre-draft sort of podcasts.
Yeah, it's a gem. Yeah.
Another guy who basically is always healthy, played in every game over the last 2 years, 17 PBUs, 112 tackles, and 2 picks. I love these small school guys because, Vincent and Kone, like, because you can't really tell how good they are, but you're taking them 5th, 6th round. So you have a chance to get steals. We talked about Tariq Woolen was a 5th round pick out of, I think, UTSA, has turned into a great outside corner for Seattle. So we'll see what Kone can end up doing in terms of, on the field tape sort of stuff. Very fast, so he can stick with receivers, tall and lengthy. Definitely has some press coverage capabilities, fluid hips. He's a taller corner, but has good control for his height, I would say. Misses a lot of tackles in the run game and also receivers in the open field. But, high effort guy, tries to fight off blocks the best he can, chases down ball carriers. I think he's really good in zone, with nice anticipation, with routes crossing his face, getting to the ball. Like I said, 17 PBUs over the last 2 years. Field Yates, when he was drafted, was talking about how he can lose some traction at the top of routes, and that's something he could definitely work on. In the NFL, Mel Kiper mentioned that he will certainly help the Ravens secondary.
That's good to hear, at least. I mean, when you're talking about some late round corners, you can't say very confidently that they'll even be on the team, to be honest. And I mean, for a loaded 6th round like this, that's definitely going to be a name that you're hoping is on the team as in one of your gems. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I think he'll probably make the 53. Probably will be, sort of the backup outside corner, but around, and behind JAD in Tampa. So I think that'll sort of be his spot rookie year.
Yeah. And to go to our next pick, it was a trade back with the Jets, round 6, pick 186, probably the most buzzing of the 6th round picks in general. Tyler Loop, kicker out of Arizona. Kicker for the Ravens. First time they've ever drafted one in their 30-year history. It is not looking too great as in a Justin Tucker standpoint. Maybe it's just, a guy that you want for the preseason. I mean, it's a 6th round pick. It's not the end of the world if you get rid of him. But on the other hand, it sure does make you think, right?
Yeah. I mean, when the Tucker stuff first came out, in my opinion, I thought they were going to cut him kind of soon.
Like right then.
And
yeah, I think that's
they sort of just let the NFL do their thing as they've been investigating the whole situation. And I was sort of thinking that they might just roll with Tucker and that they're going to, just do that. Yeah. And that's not something that I really agreed with. And I saw Jeff Zrebiec yesterday morning sort of have a tweet kind of loosely saying that he expects the Ravens to draft a kicker. And I was like, oh, okay. Like Zrebiec is always right. He has a lot of connections. Yeah. So I guess they're going to draft one today. And we saw the Miami kicker go. And I think the only surprise here, I think Zay was talking about it in the chat. Like we were all kind of expecting Ryan Fitzgerald to be the guy out of Florida State because they did have like a private workout with him. But Ravens special teams coach, I believe, or not special teams coach, like kicking coach, Randy Brown, basically they let him draft the kicker. He basically told them the guy he liked the most, and that was Tyler Loop. Yeah. It feels funny to sort of talk about a scouting report on a kicker, but here we go, Zach. 5th-year senior, 5'11", 191, out of Arizona. School record 62-yard field goal in 2024.
That's awesome.
6 of 9 from 50 plus in 2024, which you definitely will expect that to get even better in the NFL.
Yeah.
With pro coaching. Used to be a punter too, so in case someone roughs Jordan Stout and we don't have a punter, Tyler Loop can fill in there as well. I did see a note. Obviously, I'm not watching tape on kickers, but I did see a note that said when he misses, it's usually pulled left. So that could be something that is fixed as well, and maybe he turns out to be really good. One other thing I saw, and this is so funny, in his weaknesses, it said, makes it known when he's disappointed with the holder.
Oh, I like that. I do like that.
I was like,
wow. Because Stout was given a little bit of, given that kind of title for a bit there. Maybe Tucker.
Yeah, so we'll see if Loop ever yells at Jordan Stout next season.
That's awesome.
I expect the Ravens were sort of non-committal in the press conference yesterday, but I kind of expect him to be the kicker this year.
Wow.
I mean, they spent a draft pick on him. Like, the EDC values these picks. Like, if they're drafting a kicker, I mean, I think he's probably going to end up being the guy. Yeah. Maybe they just make sure he isn't terrible in camp and kind of just go from there. But, we'll see. Hopefully he's making his kicks in the preseason and doesn't start like 2 for 6 after week 2 or something like that. But
whatever you just mentioned, that kind of note about being upset with the holder, he does have a little bit of like the kicker swag you need in general, where you're going to be a little barky with that. That's freaking awesome. Yeah. I saw him hit a 65-yarder and a 75 or 70-yarder in a practice. The 65-yarder, he kicks it, he turns around immediately, and he's like holding out his hand to like dap up his holder. Like before the ball is even halfway up, he's just sitting there. He's like, I know it's like he has full kicker like mentality of being a total BA. So I'm totally in on the loop. I love it. It's uncomfortable almost to talk about for me. I'm a massive kicker guy. So I'd be okay with it as the kicker for the year.
It's an unexpected situation that we were not anticipating on happening.
Totally. And we can get into the next pick, which is maybe the most what's a good word for this? Maybe the most exciting pick of the second round. I mean,
you mean third day?
Maybe in my opinion, third. Third day. And in round 6, pick 203, LeJohntay Wester, Brad's gem of our wide receivers from Colorado, and John Harbaugh gets his wish, return specialist. My favorite note on him, I was trying to figure out maybe an NFL comp as in size. 5'11", I think around 165-ish.
Yeah.
And that is almost exactly like an Xavier Worthy. So the speed is absolutely there. It's just he's a yards after catch guy. He's a return guy. So it makes sense that if he just gets the ball in his hands and he can run, heck yeah. Love that. What's up, Don C? Great draft. We totally agree, man.
What's up, Don C?
We're pumped.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Well, LeJohntay Wester, that pick, listen, it made me feel pretty good about myself.
Yeah.
Because awesome. I talked about him like 2 or 3 different episodes.
Dude, yeah.
So cool. Because I just remember like late March, I'm like, okay, let me figure out who can return punts in this draft class.
Sure.
And one of them was LeJohntay Wester. And obviously, I think a lot of people know who he is because of Colorado. And he, honestly, I think he was their second best receiver behind Travis Hunter.
Yeah.
Last year. So everyone kind of knows who he is because Colorado was on TV all the time. But yeah, man, electric punt returner. I liked him a lot. I feel like I'm going to be repeating myself because I've already talked about him in April a couple of times.
No,
but
you're good.
Some people probably haven't heard this. So yeah, his combine measurements 5'10", 163. So very, very small guy. Ran a 4.46 at the combine. I would say his speed on the field looks faster than a 4.46 to me. So he was 4 years at FAU, Florida Atlantic, and then transferred to Colorado for a 5th year. He was Conference USA All-Freshman team as a wide receiver and return specialist at Florida Atlantic. And then, transferring to Colorado in 2024 was honorable mention All Big 12. Back to FAU, 2,700 receiving yards in his 4 years there, was dominant. But he decided to transfer to Colorado, sort of, play under brighter lights, be in, part of a bigger picture, maybe get more eyes on him. And he played it all 13 games. Again, another guy who's been healthy.
Yeah.
74 catches, 931 yards, and 10 touchdowns in a crowded receiver room at Colorado.
For sure.
68 career punt returns, 11 yards per return, 49 missed tackles on those returns, and he's returned 2 of them for touchdowns. Look up his return against Utah this year.
Sick.
Yeah, something I see from him is great vision in the open field, whether he's returning punts or yards after catch. Big play potential from the slot. Like I said, great eluding contact, and I think this also portrays in his route running, where he can sort of avoid defenders and stay on timing with his route. Had a lot of drop problems in 2023 at FAU, got a little better with that at Colorado. 49% contested catch rate, which is pretty good for a 5'10" receiver.
Yeah.
Can go up and get the ball. The Hail Mary against Baylor, which I'm assuming everyone has seen. So if anyone doesn't know anything about LeJohntay Wester, look up the Hail Mary against Baylor and the punt return against Utah.
Yep. You'll be sold.
We talked about this, Zach, and this was in James Ogden's draft report. Ravens need guys who perform well in big moments.
Yeah.
And in the pouring rain, came back to the ball, caught a Hail Mary against Baylor this past season from Shedeur Sanders. And that's what you're looking for, right? It was a great catch. So this is a guy I'm really excited about. I think was a steal. I know I'm super high on him, but I was thinking of him more as I knew he would go later, but in my mind, a 3rd or a 4th round guy.
Yeah.
For me.
That's okay. When I mentioned, the speed in comparison to Xavier Worthy, I think of him as in a deep wide receiver, 6 even for the Ravens, which is okay.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily seeing him on the field almost at all. I think maybe it's a part of trickery, just getting the ball in his hands, big play guy. I mean, send him freaking on some vertical and just let him cook. Maybe he beats him and Lamar can just throw it up there.
Yeah.
Overall, just perfectly happy with this pick. You get a wide receiver that is capable of playing for you, who knows how to handle being fed the ball a lot in a Colorado kind of offense, and is a returner. John Harbaugh is giddy. He's freaking pumped up over there. And again, a pick I'm totally jacked up for.
Yeah.
We ask for a returner, we get a returner. Freaking masterclass.
This is my favorite pick of the draft, I would say.
Really? Okay.
Obviously,
I dubbed my green that for sure. So I was wanting you to know too.
Obviously, I'm more excited about Malachi Starks. I'm not saying Wester is going to be the best player of this class, but in terms of value, this is probably my favorite pick.
Nice.
Yeah, like you mentioned, probably wide receiver 5 or 6. Ravens have Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, DeAndre Hopkins, who I keep forgetting about.
Yeah.
Tylan Wallace, Devontae Walker, and then Wester, I think will probably make the team as the wide receiver 6.
Me too.
But definitely, not definitely. Hopefully, he can be the punt returner.
Yeah.
Maybe can light a bit of a spark at the bottom of the Ravens receiver room. I feel like the Ravens, number 5 and 6 receivers are never that great or athletic kind of. And I feel like this is a guy that's sort of going to change that. Like you mentioned, can maybe be used as a gadget guy in certain situations.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Ravens, even with a healthy receiver room, the Ravens were using Steven Sims last year on jet sweeps and end arounds. So Wester might get some work too on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, man. Yeah, we both love that pick. Another pick, as in a fan favorite pick, just given his name alone. D tackle out of Brad's Virginia Tech, Aeneas Fub Peebles.
Yeah.
I think you can kind of give us a little breakdown of who he is as in a scouting report, but I definitely had some good notes on him that I think you want to hear.
Yeah, so I'm currently a senior at Virginia Tech, so I've seen Peebles play. He's only been here for 1 year, but I saw him play, 4 or 5 games in person.
Yeah.
Transferred over from Duke. He's a 5th-year senior, 6'1", 282. So, like, that's the whole knock on him, is size.
Yeah.
He is so fun to watch.
That's such a good comment.
Yeah,
He is a D
he does.
tackle name. Great comment,
does.
Rod. That's a great name. That's awesome.
He is so fun to watch. Right off the snap, explosiveness, immediate problem for the guard right off the snap. He's a 3-tech D lineman. A massive bag of pass rush moves.
Oh, yeah.
This guy is a really good interior pass rusher.
Mm-hmm.
Insane work ethic, loves the game. The weakness, it's literally just size. Doesn't have the length to sort of, especially in the run game, like stack and secure blockers and sort of get around them. But I think can be a really good pass rusher. Against Miami Tech, we lost on a Hail Mary that got overturned. That should not have been overturned, but we'll leave that for another day. Okay. But during that game, there was one play where he had an outside spin move on the right guard and sacked Cam Ward in like 1 second after the snap.
That was
and it's
awesome.
Like this guy.
Yes, I saw that. Man. That was awesome.
Continues to work.
Pick, man.
Yeah, continues to work at his, the play when his first move isn't successful. Bats down a few balls, tackles wide receivers on screens, chases down backs. I don't know if I'm being a little biased here because I'm literally a Virginia Tech fan, but this was awesome to see. Tech had 6 players go on day 3. We didn't have any top guys, but I was like, we got to get one of these guys, man, for me. But yeah.
And my biggest note for him, first I want to say a stat. PFF's highest graded pass rusher among defensive tackles in 2024. Number 1, 91.2. That was awesome. Love that stat. And I think for a biggest note, as in seeing him as a player, he's not the Michael Pierce replacement. He fits more of the Travis Jones, Matabike bill, where
Broderick Washington.
Inside. Yeah, another great name for it. It's all that same archetype where the late round guy, he's a jacked dude that somehow gets past in pass rush situations. Like you said, it's not only his bag, it is a good amount of strength. He's a big dude still. Mm-hmm. And I love that. Really, the Ravens and their late defensive linemen, every time that you get them, it's like, wow, this guy could be legitimate. Like there's so much. How does the best graded pass rush D lineman go in the 6th round? Like what? The other names among them were top guys. Derek Harmon. I forgot a 2nd round guy. I mean, what the heck?
Yeah, it's harder to tell with the small school guys, but Peebles and Wester, I think, are going to be steals. Absolute steals.
I love that.
I think he's going to play pretty soon, like on passing downs.
I hope so.
As an interior rusher. He's already the Ravens' 4th best D lineman behind Broderick, Travis Jones, and Matabike. Last thing I wrote down was rotational D-line who will make plays during his rookie contract.
Love that. Perfect.
Ravens do need a Michael Pierce replacement. Like Travis Jones can play nose tackle, right? Yeah. He's bigger than different body type than like Matabike and Broderick Washington, but you'd like to have, another nose tackle. I think EDC talked about the Ravens are going to try to sign someone to sort of play behind Travis Jones there, but I like this pick a lot, man, obviously.
Me too. As a late pick, you can't get any more excited as in a kicker now potentially starting. That does sound like I'm joking, but it's not. I was pumped for a kicker. I was pumped for a return man that has awesome speed, and I'm pumped for a defensive lineman that can definitely be a part of play. Don C says my spell check keeps autocorrecting and calls him anus people.
Yeah, it's a hard name to type out, honestly.
Yeah, it is.
But if I hadn't been doing it for a year already, but yeah, man, he's so fun to watch. Okay. Pick 212. We're still in the 6th round, right?
Yep. No, we're stuck here. 5 picks. 5 picks in the 6th round.
The matrix of the 6th round.
We're here.
Okay, Robert Longerbeam, corner out of Rutgers at 212.
Mm,
Pick 212. Fifth year senior, 5'11", 175. So not a big guy. Um, again, we talked about speed, 4.39 in the 40.
mm,
Second best 10-yard split for all the corners at the combine. So
okay.
really, really quick. And he was an honorable mention All Big Ten in 2023 and 2024, which is
Wow.
a really good conference, obviously.
For sure.
Um, again, this is a theme. I always try to find a theme with Ravens draft classes because I do think they try to get a same category of guys. And this year it was injury-free players.
Mm,
Longer beam played in 13 games in 2023, 12 games in 2024. This past season led Rutgers with 11 pass breakups, 2 picks, 45 tackles, and he was also a team captain.
wow. Like for a 6th round pick again, when you talk about someone like Kone, you talk about someone like Peebles,
Yeah.
it's a guy that stood out, especially for longer beam. He was another standout in the Shrine Bowl, apparently.
Mhm.
And the fun part was that bowl put him in slot corner situations and he dominated. He
Yeah.
was an outside corner his whole time at Rutgers. So in 5 years at Rutgers, and they're like, yeah, press slot. That's amazing. But like you said, it's not even about, I think, speed for longer beam. I think it's about just the word quick. It's
Quiz.
about, I think that's such a perfect note for him. I didn't think his tackling was all that great, just in some videos from him, but
Yeah.
he was a part of big plays. He had great games against a team like Ohio State. Pretty good graded
Mhm.
game, and that's impressive alone. So you take a chance on a guy in the very late round,
Yeah.
very late pick, but a guy that can play well on a very high level absolutely gets my vote. Heck yeah.
Yeah. Definitely a thinner corner at 175. High IQ, probably too small to play outside in the NFL. Like you said, he played outside his whole time at Rutgers.
Yeah, that's
Um,
amazing.
footwork, lateral quickness is like so crazy to
It's
me. Like
amazing.
I don't I don't know. I feel like he should have been drafted higher. Like
Well, yeah,
but
some PFF guys, maybe I forgot the YouTube that you sent about whatever rep he was in the
yeah,
Shrine
yeah,
Bowl,
yeah.
but they were talking like he would be a gem of the draft, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah, that was my guy. That was Trevor Sikkema who had Starks at 8 and McGreen at 10 on his big board. That was the
Oh,
same
really?
guy.
Same guy?
Um, but yeah, nice ball production, competitiveness, 77 percentile in forced incompletions for corners. So
Mhm.
obviously, the top quarter in that realm of things. Um, like you said, can struggle with tackling, below average strength. Arms are also a little bit shorter, which is another reason why he might be a slot in the NFL, not just his weight. And can struggle again in the run game. Yeah, that Shrine Bowl rep. So he's covering Ricky White, who was drafted, I think, in the 6th or 7th round,
Yeah.
on a whip route. If anyone doesn't know what a whip route is, it's basically like, I don't know how to explain this. It's basically like this and then that. It's like multiple moves, shifty slot athletic receivers run it. Um, it almost looks like they're going to be running a slant or a drag, and then they cut outside really quickly. And Longer Beam is covering this one-on-one, and it looks like you texted me, Zach. It looks like he knows the route, which
Yeah.
obviously he doesn't. But like, I was like, gee, like that rep was insane,
Yeah.
and like the
Stride for
footwork
stride.
and the lateral quickness is like beautiful to watch. Um, I think he can make the 53-man roster. We'll see. Back end corner who has inside outside versatility, I would say. Um, can develop behind the guys like Tampa and JID, Armour Davis. Backup slot corner, maybe special teamer, probably going to be his role early on.
Mhm. Can't add any more. I think watching him against Ohio State making some big plays was really part of my confidence in him in a 6th round pick too. You mentioned, honorable mentions in Big Ten and all, but
Mm-hmm.
and that should probably give him a higher board than where he fell to. But
Yeah,
overall, 6th round pick, 5 6th round picks, you can't say any of them were really disappointing in any way.
I know.
I think all of them were high graded, high value picks.
Yeah, And like the Ravens, so the Ravens are taking guys that fell. So I feel like in the past they've taken guys that fall because of injury, and it doesn't really work out that often.
Mhm.
Um, this year I feel like they're taking guys that are falling either because of lack of size or small school. And I think that's a much better strategy, I would say.
Sure.
Do you want to get into the final pick?
Yeah, dude. Our second LSU offensive lineman
Yeah.
taken in the draft, guard Garrett Dellinger. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Pick 242, Garrett Dellinger, fourth year senior, 6'4", 325, 26 starts at left guard. So he was on the other side of the line as Emory Jones. He did play 3 games at left tackle, 1 at center. This past season started 7 games at left guard, but he had surgery on his ankle. So
Yeah.
this is the first injured guy the Ravens selected all
Yeah.
draft.
Mm-hmm.
Really vicious run blocker. I'd say it was really good technique on combo blocks, double teams. Pretty good with his hands. As a pass protector, he can stay in front of defenders once he gets his hands on him. Can definitely be vulnerable in the pass rush department, though, with bull rushers. Even I think finesse rushers he can struggle with at times. And then obviously the injuries, missed multiple games in 2022 and 2024. 11 picks. Not everyone might make the roster. I think this guy does have a chance, though.
Sure.
As a backup guard. I mean, the Ravens have what, like 6 linemen right now? Like they need guys, and they drafted 3 of them. So maybe all 3 of them do make the roster. And then, of course, he does have some left tackle experience. So, if 3 guys were to go down, we have someone who can fill in and maybe not be horrendous. But yeah, it's kind of funny. The 2 picks I might disagree with a little bit are the 2 LSU offensive linemen.
They seem to be a theme of the draft, though. 4 of them taken. 4
Yeah.
LSU offensive linemen taken in the draft. A fun note from me here. 268 pass blocking snaps due to injury. He surrendered only 3 total pressures, no sacks. I mean, that
Yeah.
O-line must have been just ridiculous.
Yeah. And a lot of these guys were protecting Jaden Daniels last year.
Yeah.
So
pretty impressive, man.
they have experience with quarterbacks who run around a lot. Don C. I think these DBs are film junkies. That's what gives them the advantage. They love the game and do work. Yeah, like Starks, for example, super high IQ.
Yeah,
and like
IQ
has
guys.
talked about basically in that clip with Garrett Downing, talks about how he was able to diagnose a play because of watching film. So yeah, we went over everyone in an hour, Zach. All 11 guys.
Man. That's fun.
Let's see. Do you have any like final thoughts on the draft or anything like that? I'd say definitely like the Ravens took no guys besides their 7th round pick who have any major injury history. I really think they're trying to stay away from that.
The theme there. I love that.
And I love taking guys from small schools, high upside, and then also a few guys that fell because of a lack of size but are really talented.
Yeah. And you could say the theme, I love that theme that you said of, non-injury guys. Best availability is availability.
Exactly.
And I love the little kind of Senior Bowl standout kind of theme, Shrine Bowl standout kind of theme. The smaller schools that sent guys up, and really a draft class in total that was deemed not as incredibly valuable as other years in comparison. So you had to really do your digging to find guys capable of willing to spend high picks on them. Green being from Marshall, smaller school. Carson Benson, Alabama A&M. Western Michigan, Kone. I mean, I think that's fun that you get that many, smaller school names.
Yeah.
Especially when you say a fifth round pick in 141, so very close to a 4th rounder, traded away a 4th rounder to get it. You spend 2 of your top 5 picks on guys that are from smaller schools. Like the Ravens scouts, EDC always praises them. I mean, such high love for them. But it seems like this year specifically, you had to have the best scouts to be able to go and pick some of these guys and find them at the range that you did. So overall, if you're just looking at boards, I think the Ravens had amazing value in the draft. If you're looking at just the film and the highlights for these guys, you find that all of these guys are capable of making the 53 and contributing at some point. And overall, I love people that are grading it super high, like A range, B plus, A minus for the Ravens in total, because someone said it in the chat. It's one of the most confident draft classes from EDC.
Yeah.
Since maybe a 2022. I mean, there was some mentions here. Some of you guys in the comments are talking about it, but overall, how can you not be pumped about this group?
Yeah. And like, if someone were to just tune into this episode for the first time, they'd probably think we're like major homers. But like, I criticized Ravens drafts a lot in the past.
Sure.
But they drafted like every day 3 gem I had talked
that you wanted. Yeah,
so like, what am I supposed? I can't like switch up.
Mhm.
But like, I love all their day 3 picks. So,
Mm.
you know, this is an awesome draft in my opinion.
Yeah, overall, I would have to agree with the consensus. I think it's about an A. Just given what we've seen from them in college. I hope each of them are amazing in the NFL, but it's not how it always turns out. Hope so, though.
Yeah. Is that all?
I think so, man.
Yeah, so I guess maybe we'll get another draft video out going over everything one more time, but if this is our last draft video, man, thanks for all the support.
Yeah, you guys,
guys.
thank you.
We started in like late March doing a bunch of research, watching tape on all these guys, and it worked out well because Ravens took a lot of guys that we had watched and didn't have to do, hours of research after the draft, really.
Mhm.
So yeah, it was awesome. Draft season sort of coming to a close, and we're gonna get into rookie minicamp and all those sorts of things. Schedule release
is literally the
2 weeks
13th,
away.
14th? Oh my gosh.
Schedule release is 2 weeks away.
Those videos are gonna be so much fun. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I'd say, maybe the busiest time of the calendar year in terms of the podcast. Like we were low key more busy than we are during the season. In April
with the draft stuff, yeah.
So we'll be able to, chill out a little bit while also, still doing some videos.
Staying consistent for you guys. For
Yeah.
Sure.
But yeah, man, appreciate the support, guys. Be sure to like the video, helps us out a ton. Subscribe if you're new. We will probably be getting something out later this week as well. But yeah, man, schedule release 2 weeks away. That's always
I'm so pumped for that. Oh my gosh.
But yeah, link for Spotify is in the description if you guys would rather listen to the pod. But yeah, appreciate you guys so much, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace.